I don't want to make this video. In fact, it hurts my heart to think that I even have to. But, I do. I gotta get through it. We just have to tear the band-aid off and discuss the obvious, no matter how much it hurts. I believe it was back in June of 2018 during my Kingdom Hearts 3 release reaction that I guaranteed that game was going to be my game of the year for 2019. Without question. Nothing was even going to come close to it. Well, I made that video recently. I'm sure you've probably realized, if you've seen it, that not only was Kingdom Hearts 3 not my game of the year, but it wasn't even on the list. Not even mentioned anywhere. But why? Now, if I would have compiled that list right after I beat the game and put my controller down, probably would have been. But I wanted to give myself time to digest everything and sift through my thoughts and my feelings. I spent a little bit of time looking at different reviews and criticisms, and doing so gave me the opportunity to take off the rose-colored glasses and realize that they were right. Kingdom Hearts 3 was not my game of the year in 2019 simply because it wasn't worthy of it. But again, I ask, why? So, I guess we're gonna look at the game in two sections. The first, in my opinion, has the most problems, while the second half has the biggest. Just in case you aren't up to date on your Kingdom Hearts lore, KH3 opens up following the events of Dream Drop Distance, when Sora makes a stupid, boneheaded mistake and leaves himself vulnerable to Xehanort's dirty deeds, and he fails the Mark of the Master exam, as well as loses his powers and his overall confidence in himself to be a hero, more or less. And that's what the first half of the game is pretty much about. Traveling from world to world, trying to regain that which has been lost. Trying to remember what it's like to be the hero that the world needs in order to face the coming war with Xehanort and his army. And I guess more specifically, it's about regaining the power of awakening, so that he can include Ventus in the situation. The problem that I have with this, though, in terms of gameplay, is that I would argue that Sora is the strongest he's ever been. He just sort of ends up with these ultimate spells, these finishing moves, whatever you want to call them, that are in the form of old amusement park rides. They completely wipe the floor with lesser enemies. They're extremely helpful with bosses. But the game doesn't really give any sort of explanation about them. Don't really know why they're there or how they're there. They just are. Sora just has them. Now, it would be different if maybe he had to go to Merlin and learn or earn them from him, so that there was a sense of growth within his character, especially because Kairi and Lee are currently training with him to become Keyblade wielders. So I think overall, if they were kind of training alongside each other, there would be a real sense of like, everybody's getting stronger, everybody's getting ready, here we go, here we are going forward. But I kind of take issue with the fact that the game just kind of hands you these magic spells kind of under the table, yet it expects you as the player to somehow believe that Sora is in a weakened, infragile state. In terms of plot, this game is out there. It's really convoluted. And I know that this is the part of things where people that don't like Kingdom Hearts or that are kind of outside the series looking in are going to say, well, the whole series is convoluted and stupid and hard to understand. I have to disagree. I don't think Kingdom Hearts is that hard to understand. It just takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of playthroughs to fully grasp, because each time you play it, you're going to pick up on a piece of the puzzle that you missed and didn't have before. But that's a different rant for another day. The reason why I say that this particular game in the series, this particular installment in Kingdom Hearts is so convoluted and out there is because nobody seems to really understand or know what's going on, what's happening. And you would think that if anybody should have a grasp on this, it should be the heroes of the game, right? Sora, Donald, and Goofy. But they don't. They, instead of it's almost like the developers decided that zapping Sora of all his magical powers and his confidence in being a hero also meant that they needed to take away his overall knowledge of anything and how it all works. It really feels like Sora is the Sora from Kingdom Hearts 1, just this naive kid trying to learn and understand this extremely overwhelming thing. Trying to wrap his brain around something that is bigger than him. And I'm not sure why they felt the need to do that. And it throws off the structure of the game going forward. Traditionally what happens is that Sora goes from world to world, using his Keyblade to combat the darkness and protect the world, while battling alongside whatever Disney character, whatever the world is, whoever the inhabitants are, and they generally learn something together, or they go through an experience, and a light bulb goes off in Sora's head, and he kind of teaches it to that secondary character. This time, however, because things are so weird, that's not the case. Basically, what happens is that they run into the bad guys, Organization 13. They run into a member. He or she then gives this convoluted, cryptic speech. Typical bad guy stuff. Ha ha ha! You're weak and powerless and worthless, and you're not gonna beat us. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what we're planning. Ha 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 ha! And instead of being Sora, he basically just stands there with a dumb look on his face and says something to the effect of, "I don't know what's going on here, I don't know what you're talking about." Which basically means that secondary character, be it, for example, Anna or Rapunzel or Woody, which we will get to in a second, believe you me, we will talk about Woody. It leaves those secondary characters to step up for Sora and protect him. Basically, they are the ones that are teaching Sora the moral of the world, essentially. Like, this is what we've learned. You, the bad guy, are wrong. This is why, this is how. And basically Sora then, after, the speech is said and done, character turns blue in the face, gets really empowered, pisses the bad guy off, and then Sora just goes, "Oh yeah, I knew that. I knew that all along." And every world is like that. My favorite instance of that is the Toy Story world, when it happens. And Woody, of all people, of all characters, is the one that steps up and basically rips the bad guy a new butthole and lets him have it with this whole long, rousing speech about how friends, once they are connected, they're never lost again. No matter how often they see each other, no matter how far apart they are, they're always connected, or something like that. And it was just really comical to see, to expect that type of speech from Sora, the hero, the person that should have told the bad guy off, and instead get Woody, who is just super sassy and just like, listen here, buddy. And he just has no qualms about spitting venom straight through this guy. And then at the end of it, sort of just like, you're right. I knew that the entire time. Like, duh, I can't believe I forgot that. And like I said, every world in this half of the game is like that. The entire journey is just this really confusing, uncomfortable experience. And, not only could I feel it as a player, that uncomfortableness, that oddness, you could see it in the characters themselves and their interactions. It's almost like they break down the fourth wall, kind of, and like you can, like, they're confused, they know you're probably confused, and everything is super off kilter here. And I don't know if that was like a product of like a real thing, if like the game directors and the voice actors were equally confused, and they were just like, we just got to get through this and get it together, even though the motivations are weird and whatever. I don't know if it was a real problem that they had in the game, or if that's just the way that it came across in the finished product and it just kind of missed the mark. I don't know. But it's just super weird and super apparent to me that something, whether it's real or just kind of fabricated in my own head, something is off with that portion of the game. The second part, however, is weird in the sense that, for the most part, it's a lot better. I would say, confidently, that the second half of the game is where the game gets good. You've got all this build up of the characters coming together, the characters that we all know from the entire series, essentially, are coming together on both sides, either Keyblade wielders with Sora or Xehanort's people, zealots, whatever. They're all coming together, and it's got this really good build-up with a really good payoff in the war itself, which is exactly what it sounds like, a war with both sides clashing together. It happens in the form of mini-boss battles that all kind of flow seamlessly and create this really epic period in the game. That is, for me, it was worth the wait. It was worth that really awkward journey to get to the good part, which was the war itself. You flow from the mini-boss fights to the final boss fight, Xehanort himself, You have a good payoff there. You finally get to have the showdown that I, as a lifelong fan of Kingdom Hearts, have been waiting for years, since the very beginning, since they introduced him as a bad guy and Sora as his heroic counterpart. You've been waiting for this battle, and it happens, and it's just this really epic showdown with it's like I said, it's build up with a good payoff. Um, and you get to the end, you finally beat him, and you have that moment that you probably always have when you beat the last boss and you're through with a game, especially if the series has gone on for a while. You have that deep exhale where you're like, oh my god, I did it. I can't believe it's finally over. And you're kind of celebrating a little bit. You're excited. You're kind of vibrating. You're numb. You can't feel your hands because you're just like, oh my god, I can't. That's here we are. So you're celebrating your victory, as you should. You've gone through, I don't know how many hours it was to finally get to, give Xehanort the good stuff. But because it's Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts doesn't like to let you have nice things, they have the audacity, after you beat Xehanort, they have the utter audacity, the gall, to then sit there and try to sell you, try to convince you that Xehanort is a good guy who had the best intentions. Now, I'll admit two things. First of which, I can look past the whole thing that happened with Ventus. You get to the journey in the first half. You get to Ventus, and Sora goes, "Oh, I didn't lose the power of awakening because it's been within me the whole time. I just kind of forgot about it, or whatever. I lost it within myself." I can forgive that. Because that is a very Kingdom Hearts thing to do. And in terms of everything that I just discussed, that is the only part of the first half of the game that really makes sense. It really feels like you're back on track. Sure, maybe I was a little upset that going through the hours and hours to get to that point, and then just to have Sora shrug and go, "Had it the whole time, oops." But like I said, it's a very Kingdom Hearts thing to do. I can forgive that. Can't be too mad at that. In regards to this, I would be a little bit more forgiving if you beat Xehanort and the narrative was he was a pretty bad guy, but he's not the bad guy. There are far more evil people out there that want to seek out ultimate power and engulf worlds, just like Xehanort did. Which is something, I think that's kind of the direction that they want to go from here, because I've read articles and heard them talk about the idea that Sora's involvement in Kingdom Hearts isn't really the whole game. His role is more of a saga, a small part in a bigger picture. So, like, I could understand that if maybe they wanted to plant the seeds of that to kind of push the narrative in that direction, to go, he was a bad guy, he did some effed up things, but he's not the only one, and he's certainly maybe not even the worst of them. I could forgive them if they tried that. But how dare you? After the roller coaster ride of weirdness that game was. Not only that, but how long I've been waiting for this moment. How dare you take it away from me and try to convince me that this man was a good guy with good intentions that just went a little awry. Especially when you look at his actions over the years. The dude is just a crazy old man. He's a psychopath. I mean, he started off messing with dark magic and dark powers that he had no business dealing with in the first place. He manipulates people, bends them to their will. He basically wipes out entire worlds, stops them from existing and puts them in harm's way. He nearly kills a couple people, if not actually killing some of them. One of them was a child. He goes through some weird, like, body snatching stuff, and goes through the trouble of going through time so that he could build an army of himself, of Xehanorts. And there's just these all these different versions of him that do really, really bad things. And you're telling me that he went through and did all these bad things to good people, went through all the trouble to do them, because he's a good guy. You're telling me that basically to keep the light of Kingdom Hearts safe, to keep the power of Kingdom Hearts safe and from falling into the wrong hands again, you want to create a Keyblade War to stop a Keyblade War from happening. Any Kingdom Hearts fan knows what I'm talking about here, but I think even if you're not a fan, if you click on this video just to hear me get upset about something, because even if you're not a fan of Kingdom Hearts, you know I am, for the amount of times it's popped up on this channel, but I think even you can realize how messed up that sounds. You know, I get that maybe you wanted him to have this weird redemption type thing, where maybe you wanted him to be like, hey, you know what? I'm at peace now. You wanted to have him have his happy ending, walking off into the horizon or heaven or whatever it was with his best friend, who is also deceased because of Xehanort's actions, mind you. He's not just getting innocent people that he doesn't know killed. He's also putting people personally in harm's way. But, he did it for the greater good, so we'll just forgive him. I can't do that. I won't do that. And maybe this is just privileged fanboy, coming through, but I consider it kind of a slap in the face that after all that, after all these years, after all this building towards this one cataclysmic event, that's how you want to end it. I don't know what to say. I can only hope that it'll get better. I can only hope that whatever new direction that they take the Kingdom Hearts world, the universe, the plot, that it leads to some sort of a payoff that makes sense from trying to bring that across. Hopefully it has some ramifications as to the future. Like maybe like because Xehanort is a good guy. It hurts me to even say that. I want to vomit with those words rolling off of my tongue. I don't think you understand how bothersome it is to even fathom the idea of Xehanort being a good guy in the end. Because he's not. I mean, you can watch cutscenes on YouTube of this guy, and it doesn't matter if it's Xehanort himself or alternate versions of him, they're all bad. I know I keep harping on that, but like this was the moment that really stained the game for me, that just kind of, I don't want to say ruined everything, because there are parts to like, but that was just like, whenever I think of Kingdom Hearts, I can laugh about the rest of the stuff. The stuff that we talked about from the first half of the game, how brutally awkward it was, how it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But every time I think about Kingdom Hearts, even now, not just because I'm talking about it, but I've had friends talk to me about this game and want to know my opinions, and every time I think about it, I'm just like, they honestly tried to get that past me. Now, I haven't played the Remind DLC, primarily because I bought it, I downloaded it, I intended to jump into it, but I found out that I deleted my save file, and in order to access the DLC, you have to play the entire game again. I'm not ready to do that. I am planning on maybe doing like a ranked video of the entire Kingdom Hearts series, so I'll probably get to it then. I don't know if it kind of ties up a loose end or explains more on that or more about what's to come. I don't really know what Remind does. My hope is that somehow it makes everything make sense and makes the game better. But you know what, at the end of the day, I am a do or die Kingdom Hearts fan. I've ridden with you as a series through all the peaks and valleys thus far, so I want to see where this goes. And I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. We'll have to see if whatever that mess was has a point, you know. It is characteristic and customary for a game series that spans that many years and goes on this long. They can't all be good, right? But I guess I went into it with such hope. I was riding the hype so high that just, you know, getting as far as I did after all this time just for the narrative, just for Kingdom Hearts to be Kingdom Hearts and say what they did about Xehanort, to give him the ending that they did. All I have to say is it better have a point. It better have a higher purpose. Because if it doesn't, how dare you? I don't know. But yeah, that's my rant, guys. So take it or leave it. Let's have a discussion about it. If you wholeheartedly loved Kingdom Hearts 3, let's talk about it. If you felt is equally bothered or disturbed by the ending, let's talk about it. If you've played the Remind DLC, don't spoil it, but just tell me if it leads into something or fixes something. Let's have a discussion, because I know Kingdom Hearts, the community is out there. Hopefully you all will see this video and accept it and whatever. But yeah, until next time, guys, we'll see you later.